Within the intricate tapestry of the human experience, there lies an emotion that manifests subtly, almost imperceptibly, yet possesses a profound power to shape behaviors and perceptions: shame. It doesn't shout or explode, instead, it whispers in the shadows of consciousness, settling in quietly and often trapping us in a deep, invisible discomfort. It's a feeling that makes us wish to disappear, to vanish, as if we could erase our very existence to avoid external judgment or our own self-criticism. But what if the ancient wisdom of nature offered us a unique key to decipher the mysteries of this profoundly human emotion? We propose a fascinating journey, guided by the figure of a nocturnal and silent observer, the owl. This animal, with its ability to see in the darkness and its preference for the shadows, emerges as a perfect metaphor for hidden shame, this emotion that conceals itself in our deepest recesses. By delving into the owl's behavior and characteristics, we aim to illuminate the echoes of shame in our daily lives, unraveling its roots and the ways it manifests. Prepare for an introspective exploration, where animal wisdom will guide us on a deep journey of self-discovery and emotional understanding. Shame is a complex and visceral emotion, like an invisible veil that suddenly covers us, provoking a reaction of withdrawal and intense discomfort. More than just a blush on the face or a momentary stutter, it affects our most intimate perception, making us feel inadequate, flawed, or defective in our very essence. It's that overwhelming feeling of, "I wish the ground would swallow me whole," the uncontrollable desire to become invisible, to completely disappear from the scene that caused us such embarrassment. Think about everyday situations that trigger this emotion: a child who, tripping in the school cafeteria, drops their tray, scattering food everywhere. The first impulse isn't to clean up, but rather to shrink, to hide their face, to feel their cheeks burn under the gazes they imagine are fixed on them. Or the professional who makes a trivial error during an important presentation and spends the rest of the day replaying every detail, convinced that everyone now sees them as incompetent. Shame whispers that we aren't good enough, that we are inherently imperfect. This emotion can be triggered by grand events, such as a public failure or a large-scale humiliation, but also by small imperfections that only we ourselves perceive or imagine others perceive. Shame is the inner voice that tells us, "You should have acted differently, what an unforgivable blunder, how could you make such a mistake?" And, sadly, this voice, internalized and amplified, often pushes us towards isolation. It's crucial to differentiate shame from guilt. Guilt is about what you did, the action itself, for example, feeling guilty for telling a lie. Shame, however, is connected to who you are, to your identity. It's the painful belief that you are a liar and, therefore, unworthy. It doesn't just evaluate the action, but attacks the very essence of the individual, undermining self-esteem and self-confidence. It is precisely because it strikes at the core of our being that shame is so difficult to face and so powerful in making us want to hide, to self-annihilate, as if by disappearing, we could erase the shameful moment and, along with it, the accompanying pain. This is an emotion that compels us to retreat, to fall silent, to become imperceptible. And it is precisely in this behavior of reclusion and concealment that the figure of the owl reveals itself to be an incredibly powerful metaphor. When night casts its cloak over the world, and the day's hustle gives way to silence, the owl emerges. Its appearance isn't noisy or abrupt, it manifests with an almost ethereal, ghost-like presence. Its movements are deliberate and measured, and its flights are remarkably silent, allowing it to move undetected by its prey or potential threats. The owl is the archetype of the silent observer, with its large, mesmerizing eyes that see everything in the dim light, but are rarely seen in broad daylight. It prefers the shadows, the protection of dense tree foliage, or dark nooks where it can lurk and hunt without drawing attention, without being perceived. Its plumage, often in shades of brown, gray, and white, is a masterpiece of camouflage, allowing it to blend seamlessly with the nocturnal or crepuscular environment. It integrates so completely with the landscape, be it a tree trunk, a rock, or an ancient wall, that it becomes almost invisible to the inattentive eye. When not actively hunting, the owl retreats to a safe and isolated spot, which might be a hollow tree, an abandoned nest, or a rocky niche. There, it remains in a state of almost perfect stillness, patiently awaiting dusk or complete darkness to resume its nocturnal activities. There is an inherent discretion to the owl, a primal instinct not to expose itself. Despite being a relentless predator, it doesn't trumpet its presence or its hunts. Its attacks are swift, precise, and, above all, silent. Its life is largely lived out of the spotlight, deep in the forest, in ancient bell towers, or in other isolated, hidden retreats. The owl symbolizes deep introspection, mystery, and the remarkable ability to perceive what others cannot, while itself remaining hidden in the shadows. It personifies the art of moving, existing, and operating without attracting attention, of concealing oneself to observe, protect, and survive. It is this secretive and reserved nature that connects it so powerfully to the human experience of shame. The correlation between hidden shame and the owl's instinctive behavior is more than a simple metaphor, it's a profound mirror of behavioral and emotional patterns. Just as the owl instinctively seeks shadows and quiet to protect itself, observe, and remain off the radar of potential threats, the human experiencing shame yearns to disappear, to become invisible to the world and to themselves. Shame compels us, with an almost magnetic force, to retreat into our own emotional tree hollow, to camouflage ourselves in the social landscape to avoid any kind of exposure or judgment, real or imagined. When we are assaulted by shame, our owl eyes turn inward, in a relentless process of self-analysis. We scrutinize every one of our flaws, every imperfection, every misstep with a magnifying glass, often being more severe and critical of ourselves than any external gaze could ever be. And, just as the owl prefers the silent solitude of the night, we seek seclusion. We close ourselves off, avert our gaze, lower our voices, and in more severe cases, physically isolate ourselves, avoiding any social contact. We don't want our prey, our perceived flaw or inadequacy, to be exposed to the light of day and others' scrutiny. The stealth with which the owl moves and hunts echoes the way shame insinuates itself into our minds and bodies. It creeps in silently, sometimes so deeply and insidiously that we only perceive its presence when we already feel paralyzed, embarrassed, or profoundly uncomfortable. In the same way that the owl hides during the day, protecting itself from dangers and excessive brightness, shame leads us to hide parts of ourselves that we consider weak, inadequate, or shameful, from the light of external judgment and, often, from our own self-questioning. The owl's instinct to guard and protect itself is a remarkable reflection of the human impulse to safeguard a wounded ego, to avoid repeating situations that made us feel so small, vulnerable, and exposed. Modern science offers us a deeper understanding of why shame leads us to behaviors so intrinsically similar to those of the owl. From the perspective of evolutionary psychology, shame is categorized as a primary social emotion that evolved throughout human evolution with a crucial function, to help us maintain group cohesion and avoid social ostracism. Feeling shame after a transgression, a mistake, or a slip-up can be interpreted as an adaptive mechanism to signal to other community members that we recognize our error and wish to reintegrate, re-establish bonds, and avoid exclusion. The impulse to hide, to become invisible, or to minimize our presence can be seen as a primitive and subconscious strategy to lessen negative attention and, consequently, avoid social punishment, rejection, or exclusion from the group, which in ancient times could have meant death. When the emotion of shame is activated in the brain, the sympathetic nervous system, responsible for the famous fight or flight response, can be mobilized, but in a peculiar way. Instead of physical fight or active flight, the body may manifest reactions such as muscle contraction, gaze aversion, avoiding direct eye contact, a lowered voice, and a hunched posture, all characterizing a response to freeze or minimize one's own presence. Neuroscientists like Joseph Ledoux, who study the neural bases of emotions, explain how social fear, which often overlaps and mixes with shame, can lead to these withdrawal and self-protective responses. In the animal kingdom, behaviors of concealment and reclusion are widely observed and proven effective self-protective strategies. An injured, vulnerable, or endangered animal instinctively seeks a safe refuge, away from predators or curious glances from other animals that might interpret it as easy prey. It is a pure and simple survival mechanism. In humans, this wound may not be physical, but emotional, a severe blow to self-esteem, a threat to our social image. Shame makes us feel profoundly vulnerable, and our instinctive response, echoing the owl's ancestral wisdom, is to seek refuge, a place where we can lick our emotional wounds without exposure to others. This search for reclusion, camouflage, and discretion, present both in the animal kingdom and in the complex subtleties of the human mind, reflects a deep and innate desire for self-protection and, ultimately, for social and psychological survival. How many times in our daily lives has the owl of shame made us act in ways that, in retrospect, seem illogical or unnecessary? Consider the university student who, when questioned in class about a complex topic they hadn't mastered, felt a sudden, intense heat flush their face. Instead of simply admitting they didn't know or asking for clarification, they mumbled a vague excuse about not having had time to study, preferring to appear uninterested than to expose their ignorance. They shrank in their seat, anxiously waiting for the danger to pass, exactly like the owl nestling deeper into dense foliage to avoid being noticed by predators. Or imagine the scene of a professional who, upon receiving a sincere and deserved compliment for a well-done project, deflects their gaze, fidgets with their hands, and mumbles, "Oh, it was nothing special. Anyone could have done it." Shame, here, acts like the owl's camouflage, subtly hiding the brilliance of the achievement and diminishing one's own merit. This happens to avoid the spotlight, to not seem arrogant, or to avoid standing out too much, fearing the weight of expectation or future judgment. It's the fear of accepting one's own worth and, with it, the responsibility that comes with recognition. Another classic example is someone who makes a trivial mistake while speaking in public, perhaps a stumble over words or a poorly constructed sentence, and for days afterward avoids eye contact with colleagues and friends, convinced they've become the subject of ridicule. This person transforms into the nocturnal owl, observing from afar but avoiding being seen up close, processing the humiliation in their own isolated corner. Or the mother who, realizing her child has done something considered inappropriate or shameful in public, perhaps a tantrum in the supermarket, quickly reprimands them and pulls them close, almost apologizing for the looks from others, feeling the child's shame as if it were her own. In all these situations, shame compels us to diminish our presence, to hide, to become silent and almost invisible, reflecting the instinctive and self-protective behavior of the owl in its nocturnal habitat. By delving into the intricate relationship between the owl and hidden shame, we are presented with valuable lessons that transcend simple metaphor and delve deep into human nature. The owl, with its mastery of camouflage and its preference for discretion, shows us that there is an inherent strength and wisdom in knowing how to guard oneself, in choosing the right moment to expose oneself. However, it also serves as a crucial warning, the danger of hiding too much, of allowing shame to keep us in perpetual reclusion. If shame continually pushes us to retreat and isolate ourselves, we risk losing the opportunity to be truly seen, understood, and accepted, not only by others but also by ourselves. The owl emerges at night to hunt, to survive, to fully live its role in the ecosystem. And we, as humans, we also need to find the courage to emerge from the shadows of shame, to interact, to learn from our mistakes, and ultimately, to grow as individuals. Understanding that shame is a universal emotion, and that the instinctive urge to hide is a self-protective mechanism deeply rooted in our biology and psychology, can be incredibly liberating. We are not alone in this feeling of discomfort or inadequacy. The true challenge is not to try and eliminate shame, which would be impossible and perhaps even counterproductive, as it also has its social function, but rather to learn to manage it in a healthy way. It's like the owl that, even camouflaged and discreet, remains alert and vigilant. We can be aware of the shame we feel, but without letting it completely paralyze us or dictate all our actions. The final and most powerful lesson the owl offers us is that, although shame may make us wish to be invisible and push us toward isolation, true courage lies in acknowledging this emotion within us, embracing it without judgment, and then making the conscious choice to emerge. Choosing to expose ourselves, even if just a little, sharing vulnerabilities, seeking connection, these are the first and most powerful steps to dissipate the dense shadows of shame. Just as the owl is an ancient symbol of wisdom and knowledge, understanding shame and how it acts within us is a direct path to deeper self-knowledge, greater acceptance of our imperfections, and consequently, a more authentic and fulfilling life. Hidden shame, present like the owl in the darkness of the night, is not an enemy to be fought, but a part of our human experience that invites us to deep reflection. It exists, it hovers around us, and instinctively, it prompts us to retreat. But by perpetually hiding in its shadows, do we not miss the invaluable chance to be truly seen, accepted, and loved for who we truly are, with all our imperfections? Think about this. What have you been hiding in the shadows of shame that, perhaps, deserves to come to light and be understood?